محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وأما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين صلوات. اللهم صل على Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted all of your great deeds and a'mal, especially your commemoration and your mourning for the sake of Sayyid al-Shuhada Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salatu wassalam, with the hope and pray that every single one of us will gain the bounty for going to his ziyarat and inshallah the benefits of his shafa'ah by reciting aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It is the day of Friday, the day in which, inshallah, we can remember all of our beloved ones, marhumin and marhumat, especially the newly deceased ones of the community, and all of those mu'mineen and mu'minat around the world. And inshallah, we can include them within our majlis by reciting a second salawat, followed by Surah Al-Fatiha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And since it is the day of Friday and we are reaching or approaching the Maghrib time pretty soon, inshallah we can invite our Imam of time, Hazrat Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, by reciting Dua Faraj together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this bounty and blessing, mashallah, to be able to get together on the remaining nights of the month of Muharram with the honor and with the intention of commemoration for the Martyrdom al-Shahada of Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam, Zainul Abidin. So, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So may Allah grant all of us the bounty that inshallah we can actually go for his ziyarat in a cemetery which is known the utmost madloom of the cemeteries around the world, and have the benefit to do a close ziyarat from his beautiful grave, not a beautiful but in terms of a spirituality, beautiful grave, and inshallah benefit from his shafa'ah. Recite one more salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So alhamdulillah, we started talking about the journey of Imam al-Hussein and how this journey consists of two parts at least, based on the division we made for the sake of our discussion. So one part was up to the day of Ashura and all the events that takes place during the day of Ashura. The second portion is when we flip the coin, and immediately after all of the masa'ib of the day of Ashura, immediately afterwards from the Sham of Qariban, the new aspect of Ashura continues and remains till the very same moment that we are living in. So this second aspect of it, which actually one can argue, it can become even more difficult than the first aspect in some aspects of it, is what? Is promoting, 1, explaining, 2, defending, 3, the message of Ashura. So for these 3 to happen, number 1, I myself have to be able to understand what Ashura is about. If I don't have a clear understanding of what was Ashura about, what was the message of Imam al-Hussein, why did he make the move, why did he take the best of the companions, why did he take the women and children with him, I would not be able to convey the same message to other people. Living in the West comes with a lot of bounties, comes with a lot of responsibilities. Believe it or not, so many people who, like, perhaps a lot of them within our network of friends, network of professional friends, network of like our neighbors, they may not know about Ashura. They may not know about Imam al-Hussein. And it's not like, it will like consider, or it will come to their mind that, oh, let me do a like thorough research of who Hussein is. No, it becomes a responsibility for me and you. Again, living in the West comes with a lot of bounties, but brings a lot of responsibilities. As a matter of the fact, living in the West, is driven by one factor, and that factor is to promote the school of the thought of the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran. I cannot just say, okay, I'm living in the West, I want to do my own business, I don't want to get deal with anything else, what's happening around me. Just let me be in my own personal bubble. And inshallah, Allah will accept all of my deeds. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Arhamur Rahimin. He will accept all of our deeds, inshallah. But He has mentioned what to do when we are in a place in which we are considered as minorities when it comes to the belief system. Yes? What's the Shari'i ruling? The Shari'i ruling tells each one of us that the minute, the moment, the second I start to fear of losing my own faith or the faith of my family, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to move, right? Make a change. Why? Because the one thing that becomes the number one priority within our life will be our faith. But is that really what we practice? When we look at our lifestyles, is that what actually becomes number one priority in our lives? Or is it everything else, everything else, everything else, and maybe the last of the last for 10 days throughout the year, maybe for 30 days within the year? Simple amount of to-do list becomes our faith and religion. So that's what we have to be frank with ourselves. How much time do I spend about religion? How much time do I spend about searching about the religion that I know? Now, most of us, we come from a background which has that solid foundation, which alhamdulillah, again, one of those blessings. A lot of times we take these for granted. But for those who travel to the different countries and they see the different ways of upbringing, little by little it makes sense how much effort has been placed in upbringing a Muslim child within a Muslim family. Then we truly say alhamdulillah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we become appreciative towards our parents. How much they have embedded within the thought of our upbringing. But for those who know, they take this for granted. It's like, okay, I'm living in my kids are just going to become like me, even better. But with no efforts, with no working, with no taking steps towards it, what's going to happen? Obviously, we're going to become in a form of a minority. We'll be all surrounded by so many different ways and avenues of education. And that's what we see. There's a difference between the second generation, third generation, fourth generation, and the first generation. Because as if we're still thinking we're back home somewhere, and everything will be provided just for the sake of 10 days of majalis of Muharram. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides so many mercies, but at the same time, He's constantly telling us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, aminu. Right? It's not just to say, oh, I'm a believer of Islam, I believe in the religion of Islam, I believe in the school of the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran, and I do this commemoration for the sake of Sayyid al-Shuhada. No, that's the first step. Aminu, in a continuous manner. Start to believe and start to believe and start to believe, meaning it becomes a journey for us. This journey, again, applies to ours and our next generations. Again, Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Not only yourselves, but your Ahlul Bayt, your family, your relatives, the ones who are living with you, the ones that you are responsible for. You know, the main thing sometimes we may like have concern for is how much I'm going to put on the table and how much I have my finances in order, inshallah, for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, 200, 300, right, years. The way we plan, mashallah, sometimes like some of the questions we get, you know, Maulana, what's the ruling of investment when I want to buy my 6th or 7th house? I'm like, may Allah grant you more. Have you gone to Hajj? No, Maulana, I'm not mustati' yet. You know, it's like, okay, when are you going to become mustati'? You know, I don't know, but, you know, according to definition, because I'm still paying for the, you know, the mortgage of my house, you know, and although it's my 6th or 7th house, hypothetically, I could sell one of them and like pay all of those mortgages at once and go to Hajj and come back because Hajj is wajib and these are all mustahab, but I have to plan ahead. Plan ahead in what terms? In what terms? Yes? In terms of living for lifetime on this planet Earth? May Allah, you know, grant all of those who want to live on this planet Earth like 1,000 times, may Allah grant them that 1,000 years. But that's not the whole concept. That's not the whole mission. That's not the whole vision. That's not the whole purpose of us being sent to this planet Earth. What's the purpose of life? Come here and be able to do all of these plannings and become more thorough in terms of plannings and seek so many consultations, go through so many workshops, see so many people, find so many networks, do so many like classes here and there, build that resume and constantly try to like live for a longer and longer time. If that's the objective, then that's completely in contrary to the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Sirat al-Mustaqim talks about living in the world as long as we're walking on the journey of that direct path. There has to be an aim to it. There has to be that spiritual aspect to it. There has to be that momentum in which leads to growth. Growth not only again in terms of the mundane values. Mundane values are easy. Take a look around ourselves, take a look at the history of mankind. As a matter of fact, the perfect example of the mundane bounties is when we visit senior houses. Do you have senior houses here in Cleveland? They must have, right? Every so often, it's not bad. It's not a bad idea to go and visit one of those senior houses. What do we see there? We see, mashallah, engineers, we see doctors, we see lawyers, you see politicians, you see business people, you see any type of profession you name, we'll find it there. So is that what we want to end up with? Just to increase the numbers of our resume in terms of the profession that we have actually worked in this life? Is that the end result for us? That's all we measure everything by it? It's like the very first time we encounter one another, Salaam alaikum, alaikum assalam, where are you from and what do you do? The minute we say what I do, there comes all this list of judgment in the back of my mind and trying to make sure how do I judge the person according to what they do? But is that truly the perspective of religion? Or no, the perspective of religion looks at an almost totally different approach towards this. Number one, it teaches us to remove all of this prejudgment from the person. How? Practical example, we do the same thing, same dialogue, we meet each other for the first time, and I'll ask you Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, right? And you say alaikum assalam, we're about to introduce ourselves to one another. But I'll ask you before you tell me your name or your occupation, your age, your resume, all of these goodies that we usually talk about, I'll ask you to introduce yourself to me without your name, no family name. I don't want to know where you're from. I don't want to know your background. I don't want to know what you do. I don't want to know what you have done. So how would you introduce yourself to me? Silent? How much Allah? Azadar of Hussein, okay. So now we have to talk about Hussein, we have to talk about Azadar, right? So technically speaking, when we remove all of these attributes, right? We know one another, technically speaking, by attributes. We have this name and last name, but this name and last name, even what we call is e'tabari. Why? The minute we pass away, the very first thing they take from us is the name and the last name. They don't even refer to our body by our name and last name. They say, bring the body. Or he's here, he's there. Let's do the ghusl of him, right? Let's do the kafan of him. They don't even mention the name. Right? So the very first thing they take away is the name and the last name. What about our occupation? What about our resume? What about our professional career? What about our accomplishment in this world? Right? So these attributes in which we are so used to getting to know one another based on these attributes. When you look at it from a realistic approach, these attributes are supposed to be put aside. What are we supposed to look at? If I put aside all of those attributes, what remains? I cannot say nothing, right? It's not like, I'm alive because of the attributes. It's vice versa. The attributes are actually come to actuality because I'm alive. Yes? Does my job define me, or it's me who actually defines my job? Which one is it? Everybody's sleepy today. Everybody had a big lunch at the Salat al-Jum'ah, I think. Recited salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So basically they say the asalat, right? That essentiality of existence comes to who? The subject of the verb. If we are not here, none of the works we do will be here. Yes? So there has to be something before all of these attributes comes to an actuality. That's something that is there, it's common between all of us. It's common between all of us. The brother mentioned Azadat of Hussein. Azadat of Hussein is correct, but within the majlis. What about outside of the majlis? Right? Are we still Azadat of Hussein? Or no, there is another more general concept in which, again, we all are common with. And furthermore, we can find that commonality between even non-Muslims and non-believers. What is that concept? Human being, you can say. Even remove the human, right? We call them, we are beings. Alhamdulillah, Allah has given us the ni'mah, the bounty of existence. We are here. We are able to breathe, right? We exist. This existence become common between all of us. So we have this common value, this common denominator in which we can actually emphasize on and be able to build upon us. Now, what about all of these attributes when they come about? Obviously, they become part of our deeds, part of our personality, part of our identity. The identity in which we're supposed to do interactions with one another in a constructive mode, not in destructive mode. Yes? So when we go to this whole second aspect of the movement of Ashura, or movement of Imam al-Hussein, and how the message of Imam al-Hussein is supposed to be carried on, and it has been carried on, and what will be our responsibility towards it, this is the aspect we have to look at. That if we all are part of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if I have access to the teachings so noble, so pure, so in a sense you can say flawless as the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran, what responsibility does that bring upon me and my family and the people that I know? So many centers we go to, and when they have interfaith dialogue, they invite others from the other faith. When they come in, when we inform them a little bit more about the information of what's happening within our religion. I can say almost 100% of them, they were like, wow, we didn't know this is Islam. It doesn't have to be sometimes a very thorough, theological, doctrines of Islam. No, that's, academic side is, we leave it aside for the universities and a different platform. But a lot of times talking to our neighbors, talking to our school mates, talking to our co-workers. One of the Sheikh, he was making this as a real story, but it's very funny at the same time. He said, I was able, not me, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the grace to convert an entire family to Islam through a funeral of a cat. You connect the dots. Funeral of a cat, conversion to Islam, the whole family. What is the dots? Can anybody connect the dots? So I had a neighbor. This neighbor had this cat that they really liked. It was part of their family, as if it was the fifth member of their family. Always praising it, buying all of this stuff and doing all of this stuff, taking birthday, One day they came and they knocked on my door, and they knew that I'm a religious, person. And they said, our cat has passed away. And they were all sad. And we have this funeral for him. We want you to attend. It was funeral of a cat. Okay, a little back and forth. Should I be attending a funeral of a cat or not? Finally decided to go. So I went and I attended the funeral of the cat. And what happens? Funeral, usually they stand on the podium and they give speeches about the deceased ones. And now they're giving memories of the cat. So the neighbor is talking about the cat and giving memories. And then all of a sudden it says, oh, by the way, we have our neighbor, Mr. Such and such. And we are honored to have him. We would like him to come to the podium and say a few words about our cat. So it's okay, now problem became two. First, going to the funeral. Now I have to give a speech about a cat that I don't even know. I just know it was a cat. Okay, what am I going to do? Ya Allah, I went to the podium. When I started to, stand behind the podium, all of a sudden it came to my mind that although it is a funeral, but in funeral we can make a connection. So I started talking about the whole gathering that they had. that how respectful of a gathering is, that all of these people have come on such a day, such a time, they have given up their working hours and time, like they've decided to come here, get together in order to commemorate a funeral of a cat. How great of a cat that is, and how respectful is the act. Now imagine, if this amount of respect is being paid to a cat, how much respect should be paid to the grandson of the last prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Made a connection to the story of Ashura. Then the next connection was to the 6-month-old baby of Abu Abdullah, Hazrat Ali Asghar. He said on that session, they started mourning for Hazrat Ali Asghar. And I was just narrating the story of Hazrat Ali Asghar. The event finished. Like, I went my way, they went their way, they went to continue with their burial ceremony, whatever they had. He said after 3 to 4 months, they came and knocked on my door again. Who was it? Very same neighbor. What can I do? Is it the chahillum of the cat? He's like, no. You know, we have come to hear more about the story of Hazrat Ali Asghar. And that's how was the opening for them. And they started to do more research and more research, and more soon after, the entire family reverted to Islam, right? So how much do we talk about this stuff, right? In our own language, the stuff that we know. See, sometimes we want to be very intellectual about it. No, that's not what I mean. To the level that we know. See, that's one of the problems. Like, you know, sometimes we try to be more smart than what we know, or we try to present something that we don't know. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want, like, you know, what He expects from Allah taba'i from me and you, right? Everybody according to their own level, as long as we acknowledge at what level are we speaking about. As long as we understand that there will be this hierarchy of knowledge, obviously, right? So as long as I pertain to the level that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted me, right, my responsibility will be fulfilled. And that's a very important point, to constantly know, okay, what is it, like, you know, what is it that has been required from me? I cannot just go about and like think about it in any way that I like to, set of preferences, or even worse, sometimes I may be misinterpreting the teachings of the Quran or the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. It's not an easy task to translate, for example, a hadith. Someone may say in parentheses, oh Sheikh, but we have ChatGPT, I think they have Hadith GPT. You give it like, you know, hadith, it translates for you on an instant. Yes, it translates. But at the same time, does it actually have the hadith sciences in which can actually analyze the words of the hadith, the position of the words within the sentence, in order to actually get the true meaning that was intended by Imam al-Ma'sum? Or does it go according to the words of the hadith? Very big difference. And this minor difference make a total, like, you know, difference in terms of outcomes of what we're supposed to be practicing. So it's one thing to understand and translate, is another thing to understand the scientific aspect of hadith behind it. A lot of times we talk about so many ahadith, the next year when I visit the community, is good to some extent. I find, mashallah, a lot of youth, oh Sheikh, I've been studying all of these hadith books. I'm like, okay, it's good to study the hadith book, but in a proper way, through proper channel, through proper framework. It's not just to pick up the book and start reading one by one. This is what I understand from the hadith, and then once we finish the book, oh, I have finished Usul al-Kafi. I have finished, like, you know, Man la yahzur al-faqih. I have finished the Istabsar. I think one brother was saying, I'm finishing Bihar al-Anwar. I'm like, mashallah, Bihar al-Anwar. Finish all of the hadith, all of them from the Ahlul Bayt. It's like, you know, and you're trying to like tell them, no, it's not all of them from the Ahlul Bayt. It's like a mixture. You have to have all of these like other sciences on the side, right? Through proper channel, through proper framework, through proper steps. Same thing with the Quran. Quran, we're supposed to. We're like, you know, been actually ordered specifically to recite it on daily basis, right? What's the bare minimum? 50 ayahs. What does this 50 ayahs do per, like, you know, for recitation of the Quran? It grants us that sense of awareness for the remaining of the day if we do not ruin it. That's actually what it's supposed to function for. So as we recite the Quran, 50 ayahs, especially in the morning, after Fajr prayer, the time that we always go back to sleep, guess what? That's the time we have to stay awake, yes? As we wake up for Fajr prayer by itself is difficult. Maulana, it's so hard to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and then you have to go to work at 7. So 4:30 to 7, half an hour breakfast, but what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to sleep. And it's such a nice, sweet sleep at that time. But it's the exact opposite, right? It's actually one of the highest recommendations to stay awake during The morning time from the time of azan till the time of sunrise. In what form? If I cannot do ubudiyya, that's fine. I can do something else, but maybe I can recite the verses of the Quran in the morning with that, complete focus, inshallah. So the 50 ayah is the bare minimum. What is the 50 ayah supposed to do? Grant us this sense of awareness for the remaining of our day. Awareness towards what? Towards the very same concept we've been talking about. That what is our reality and how is this reality is supposed to be formed? And are we following on the same path? Or no, I'm just letting it go according to whatever it comes at me. That becomes a danger. Sometimes we get used to it. Oh, inshallah, Allah will grant all of us Jannah. Yes. But again, Jannah is not the ultimate result for us. His ultimate result for us is to go to heaven. A lot of animals go to heaven. A lot of non-Muslims go to heaven. A lot of non-believers may actually may go to heaven, depending on their deeds. So is that going to become our ultimate goal and objective? Oh, Sheikh, as long as I make it to heaven, I'm good. As long as I'm at the first, the doorstep of the heaven. Or no, we're supposed to actually build a heaven which will be unique. We're supposed to learn how someone such as Imam al-Hussein was able to build a heaven in which Allah refers to Fadkhuli Jannati, right? Then enter my paradise. So we have all of these role models. One-of-a-kind role models, paving the way, describing the way, telling us that it is possible, but what do we choose and what do we reside with? What do we settle in? That becomes $1 million question we always have to ask ourselves every day of the life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us. To what extent am I walking on the path of the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran? In what platform, right? In what procedure am I following it? Am I following it, or am I just going in circular motions and motions and motions? And it's easy sometimes when you want to do a criterion. Say, okay, how can I measure? We go to a doctor. What does the doctor ask? What are the symptoms, right? What are the symptoms? Oh, I have fever. I'm coughing. Then what do they say? If you have a fever, you have coughing. More likely you have maybe a cold. I'm not a doctor, so I cannot make it. Right? They ask for symptoms. So what's the symptoms for a believer? What are the symptoms for Azadar of Imam al-Hussein? What are the symptoms of those who follow the path of Imam al-Sajjad? What will be the symptoms? What will be the signs? What will be the criterions? First, I have to understand who am I following, right? Second, I can see whether I've been able to adopt those qualities within myself or not. So if I don't have any understanding towards the life of Imam al-Sajjad except for the 2 sermons that he delivered at the Masjid of Kufa and the Masjid of Sham, right? Then how can I follow his lead? We can go around and we can ask each other, how much do we know about Imam al-Baghir? How much do we know about Imam al-Sadiq? How much do we know about Imam al-Kadhim? How much do we know about Imam al-Rida? And continue. Can we give a speech about any of these Imams, right? Without the use of our cell phone, obviously, on the spot for about, let's say, 1 minute. 1 minute. Or would that 1 minute be the longest minute of our life until it finishes? Right? So if I don't know anything about my Imams, how am I supposed to follow their leads? How am I supposed to follow their leads? If I don't know the objective, how am I supposed to accomplish it? We use the same principle when it comes to our accomplishment in this world. Those who want to be successful, what do? They always find that perfect objective that they have in their mind. Then they find the milestone in which will help them to get to the objective. Then they work on achieving those milestones one at a time in order to reach where they want to be. We call them successful people. But when it comes to religion, we're just hoping that inshallah something will happen out of the blue and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us that, perfection. But is it the other way around? So I have to go back, and again, when I say get to know our Imams, I don't mean only in terms of a historical facts. Okay, our 6th Imam is this, he was born on this date, and his mother was this, his father was this. No, this is one aspect of it. One aspect of it. When Imam Sajjad has that, sermon at the Masjid of Yazid, in the Masjid of Sham, one of the faza'il, one of the virtues he points is his lineage. But Imam is talking about his lineage not only in terms of giving a history lesson. He has a very strong point that he starts with his lineage. He wants to, obviously, who is he talking? He's talking to someone who comes from a lineage which is unknown a lot of times, right? And Imam is making it clear cut. It's like, do you know who you're speaking to? Number one. To who? To someone such as Yazid, when he has the head of Imam al-Hussein in front of him and he's doing a disrespectful act to it. With all of his commanders and all of the people right there in that majlis. Imam makes it clear cut. It's like, first know your audience, then say the words that comes to your mouth. Do you know who am I? And he starts making that public, speech in which he actually shake the entire city of Damascus. Imagine one speech to change the minds of people who've been constantly for 40 years being told otherwise. How many of us are capable of doing so? Saying it is easy, but being at that position. We always talk about one of the number one challenges living in the West. We say, oh, Maulana, all of our kids, they have the problem with their identities. Let's learn from Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam. Any more severe condition that we can actually name in which the Imam was vocal about himself than the time of Imam Sajjad? Going through all of the calamities of Ashura, going to the Kufa, going to the 40 manazil, as some say, from Kufa all the way to Sham, all of those stages, different types of harassment, different types of disrespectful act, different types of masa'ib, to Imam al-Sajjad, to the members of the Ahlul Bayt. Finally, they're at the border of the city of Sham and Damascus, and how they were taken inside of the Masjid of Sham. Despite of all of that, having all of these people who have come there to celebrate. They have come there to celebrate. Now Yazid there in that situation with the head of Imam al-Hussein in front of him, all of these little kids are looking what's happening. Imam al-Sajjad stands up, says, you mentioned what you have said. Can I go on these pieces of wood that you refer to as the member of Rasulullah? Can I go and say something? Right? Then he delivers the speech on the spot. To the point that, he has not only Yazid, but all the people around him, they start fearing that if Imam continues, there will be an uprising at the very same moment in the palace of Yazid. So what do? Oh, where is Muazzin? Where is Muazzin? Why? It's not the time for namaz. No, find the Muazzin. Tell him to recite the azan. Tell him to recite the azan. Distractions. But does Imam stop? So you want to use distractions? Fine, I'll go with it. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wahdahu wahdahu, right? Imam testifies, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Is that my grandfather or is that yours? If that's my grandfather, what right did you have to kill his only grandson? Right? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So whatever severity of a condition we want to say, sometimes we say, oh, it's so difficult because I'm the only Muslim in the group. When I go there, I get pushed over, I get bullied. They told me, oh, you're a Muslim. They make fun at me. They make fun at my clothes. They make fun at the attire that I wear. Sometimes they make fun at the practices that I do. It's too hard. Just telling me because you're a Muslim? Then we talk about Imam al-Sajjad being there in chains, the chain in which they refer to as the chain of Jami', which means a comprehensive chain. What does it mean? One chain that connects the neck to the two arms to the 2 feet, all in one chain. For how many days? Till the day of Ashura, they had these chains around him. That's why you hear in the Masa'ib, as they were about to enter Sham, Imam asked the companion, do you have a piece of cloth? He says, why do you want a piece of cloth? He says, remove this, the chain around my neck and you'll notice. He said, I removed, fresh blood was coming out underneath this chain around the neck of Imam al-Sajjad. He says, put something between this chain and my neck because this has been bothering me since the day of Ashura. In such a stage, where in the middle, because they had the Ahlul Bayt sitting in the center of that Masjid Umawi. Those who have gone, once you walk in, there's a big hall, there's a minbar, what they call it minbar, right? And you can sense it, and how evil that masjid is. One of the places actually forbidden to do namaz is the masjid of Umawi. They had them sitting in the middle of all of these people who are watching them. Just watching them becomes very interesting. See, right now, you're sitting here, alhamdulillah, comfortable, air conditioner, fan, mashallah, carpets, everything provided. The camera is on the speaker, so nobody, alhamdulillah, pays attention somewhere in the phone somewhere. So I would say, turn the cameras around and have the focus on the audience. What happens? Now we become very careful. We become very attentive. We show ourselves as the smartest as, did they change it? No, they haven't changed. Right? And as AI, has come to the play, I always add these extra spices to it. With AI, we can actually read the expression of the person's face. Right? The expressions of the person's face can be actually generated by the thoughts of the person. So if they come up with the smart cameras, hopefully they will not come up with this, right? If they come up with the smart cameras, then by recording your face can actually read your thoughts. It becomes very scary. And they use it in the majalis. Not on the speaker, because the speaker is thinking of what he wants to say, but on the audience. What will happen? You know how sincere that majlis is going to become? MashaAllah, MashaAllah. So the amount of importance we give and we provide for the sake of a camera with some AI gadget to it, but when we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything, hears everything, is everywhere, it's just something, it doesn't click for us. So where the problem is? The problem is that awareness. Awareness, how to increase the awareness? We have to practice by little things that we know we're supposed to be doing in the given circumstances. By practicing the very same little actions, the bigger and major tests will come about. So it comes to the life of Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wasalam. One lesson that inshallah we can all learn from him is the fact of not allowing what is within our surroundings, what is within the circumstance that we are in, to stop us from believing and practicing what we are born as or what we have reverted to increase that self-identity in a right way. That I believe in a religion in which is based on revelation. Based on revelation. No other books are based on revelation. That by itself is enough for all of us. No other books are based on revelation. The holy book of the Quran that we have. If you just take it, I can understand it. Obviously through the proper channel. What's the proper channel? It's not self-studies. What's the proper channel? Through the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. Only and only the Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because they're said equal to the Quran. According to what? According to the hadith of Thaqalain, the two weighty things. These two will not depart one another until when? The day of Qiyamah, which means whoever wants to have the bounty of each one has to go for both of them. Cannot just take one of them. Cannot say kafana kitab Allah, cannot say kafana Ahlul Bayt. No. Needs both of them together through the channel of the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah. And the second thing that we can always learn, it's the tawassul. This connection in which we have to the Ahlul Bayt. Again, let's not take that for granted. The bounty of tawassul, inshallah, we'll talk about it on one of the nights. I have only one night left, but inshallah, if we get to it, so much comes from this inner connection that we try to make with the heart of an Imam. With the heart of an Imam. In terms of a philosophical discussion or even theological discussion, it's proven already that when two hearts, they get connected, there are effects between the two. Right? One receives something from another. There has to be an exchange of an effect when we say a connection. Simple layman example, the Wi-Fi. If the Wi-Fi doesn't connect, do you get internet? Right? No, you have to connect to the Wi-Fi to get that, the bounty of the internet, right? Same thing. The majalis of zikr, the majalis of tawassul, the majalis of masa'ib, the ones that we participate, there must be a connection with the heart of Imam al-Ma'asum. And because it's Imam al-Ma'asum, we get all of these bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to turn on the Wi-Fi towards the Imam al-Ma'asum, inshallah. Let's take a moment, as is the second night of the majlis. Let's go to the wreckage of Sham in Damascus and the kharabat of Sham. Let's say our salam, inshallah, to Imam al-Hussein. Now for tonight, let's go to the house of someone so dear and so special. They told me after the minbar, inshallah, the youth and the next generations, the next leaders of the community are going to have a presentation, inshallah, or a latmiya or a program. So it took my mind all the way for the masa'ib of someone very special who, despite of her young age, has been able to open up so many of hajat and difficult problems in the lives of mu'mineen and mu'minat. She's no one other than the 3-year-old of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, Sayyida Ruqayya, who's buried in the land of Sham and Damascus. Those who have gone, they know she has a very small and tiny shrine, used to, now it's been expanded. One of the famous stories that those who were in charge of the shrine, they talk about is like often and more often and more often. It's how they were trying to expand the shrine, and as they were buying out the houses close and around the shrine, like one house would not sell their property to the shrine complex. And that house belonged to some non-Muslim who did not believe in any of this stuff, the ziyarah, the tawassul, and it's like, no, we want our house. No matter how much of the offer they provided, they would reject the idea. They would reject the idea. So the whole entire project had come to a stall and like a halt. The guy who was a servant at the shrine, he narrates the story. He says, one day as we had our like regular like weekly meetings and we were talking about the stuff, we saw the owner of the house running inside of the shrine, constantly asking questions. He found like where we at. He came to us and he started like giving us the key to his house. We asked him, what happened? We offered so much money. He said no. We offered so many different alternatives. He said no. All of a sudden in the middle of the day, coming in the haste and in rush mode, and you're giving us the key to your house? He's like, just take it. The house is yours and I will give whatever else you want. It's like, no, you have to tell us the story. The servant understood that something has happened to him. This is not a normal case. He's like, if you want to know the story, you have to come with me. I'll tell you on the way. What's the story? He says, I'm a non-Muslim. You know me. He's like, yes, I know. He's like, me and my wife, we've been trying to have a baby for such a long time. We have gone to so many doctors. We have tried so many different ways. All of them had not worked for us. To the point that we became completely hopeless. Finally, we were blessed with a child, but as a child grew, as it came closer to the time of delivery, they gave us bad news that it is such a risky like operation that I have to make a choice between the life of my newborn and the life of my wife. And I could not pick one over another. The newborn, we've been wishing and praying for that newborn for like our lifetime. My wife, we have built a life for a lifetime. I cannot pick between the two. And the hospital was constantly asking me, oh, you have to pick between the two. You have to form the signs because the time is ticking and we're getting closer and closer and closer to delivery. As the days go by, I keep on thinking and pondering. I didn't know what to do. At one point, I became extremely muztar, in the stage that I did not know what to do. Puzzled, complete puzzle. I walked out of the hospital. As I was walking out of the hospital, all of a sudden I noticed people walking in groups towards the shrine of Sayyida Ruqayya. I didn't know what they're doing. And I remembered that my house is actually close to the shrine. So I said to myself, I've tried everything. Let me just go see what these people do. I started following behind their back as they were going. They entered the shrine of Sayyida Ruqayya. I followed behind them. They went all the way to the zarih of Sayyida Ruqayya and they were saying something in a language that I did not understand. I just followed whatever they did. And I was just going with them step at a time. As whatever they were doing, I was practicing the same rituals, not noticing how the time is going by. After about some time, maybe 20, 30 minutes, I came to my senses that what am I doing here? I'm supposed to be at the hospital signing the papers. It's the time for delivery. I started running back towards the hospital. The minute I entered the house of the hospital, I noticed a change of atmosphere. All the nurses are running around. The doctors are talking. They're whispering something. I went to the information desk, I want to go to my wife's room. They're like, where have you been? It's like, no, I don't know what happened. It's like, go immediately to your wife's room. I ran upstairs. I opened the door. What I saw my wife laying there on the bed, in her lap, a newborn baby. The minute she looked at me, she says, where have you been? I said, I don't even know where I went. I didn't know what to do, who to ask. I said, no, tell me specifically, where did you go and what did you do? And I had my question on my own. How come I see both of you here? You were supposed to be only one of you. So I didn't know whether to ask or to answer. So she responded again, no, tell me, where did you go and what did you do? It's like, I don't know. I went after this group of people, the shrine next to our house. I went inside of there and I don't even know what did I do. Then she started nodding. I asked her, what happened? She said, when you left, I fainted. When I fainted was during the operation. And that's when I started seeing myself from the above of the room. I could see my body. I could see the doctors, the nurses, everybody's coming. Everybody's trying their best to make sure they keep both of us alive. But it was impossible. They had to make a decision. They were waiting for your final call. So as this was happening, all of a sudden the door opened up. And I saw this little small
young girl, about the age of 3 or 4, wearing a chador, these black things that they wear. She walked in, and she's smiling at me as she's walking in, and she's making a circle around my bed, as if like I am the only one who's seeing her, and no one else is seeing her. Everybody's busy doing whatever they do. She keeps on circling in her like childish steps around my bed, 1 time, 2 times, how many times, and she keeps on smiling at me. Her smile was such a welcoming smile that I wanted to leave everything and just go with her. After some time, she turned around and says, "Don't worry, your husband has come to us." So I came to my senses. What do you mean my husband has come? Who are you? What are you doing here? How did you come in? How come no one else sees you? She starts walking towards the door. As she was about to leave the door, she turned around and said, "Ana Ruqayya, bint al-Husayn." I am Ruqayya, the daughter of Husayn. Don't worry, your husband has come to us. It is upon us now to provide you what you have asked. And I give you the great news. Both you and your baby will be alive and perfect and healthy. No problems. Just give our salam to your husband as well. She leaves, and I come back to my senses. I look around. The doctors tell me the good news that both you and the baby are alive, and no problem has happened during the operation. So who is this Sayyida Ruqayya? The 3-year-old of Abu Abdullah, age of 3. The most sincere age of a child is the age of 3 or 4. Is when they request for something, they don't have games. They ask for it sincerely. When they ask for a cup of water, they are truly thirsty. And if you give them a cup of water, as if you have given them the entire world, as if you have given everything that they have requested for. On top of that, the relation between a daughter to the father, especially a 3-year-old, 4-year-old to their father. Those who have daughters, they know. Immediately when you go back home from a long day at work, the very first one usually runs to the father is the daughter. She comes up, says, "Hey, Assalamu alaikum, father, how was your day?" And she starts to vent, and she starts to talk about all of her memories that has happened throughout the day when you were absent from the house. Now imagine, for the days of the days, from the day of Ashura all the way to the middle of the wreckage of Sham in Damascus, how many days has passed, how many different stops they had, how many different times she was beaten and hit on the side, how many times she had to witness the head of Imam al-Hussein being placed on top of the spear and being paraded in front of her and the rest of the women and children. Allahu A'lam. But whatever has taken place, all of a sudden in the middle of the night, in the wreckage of Sham, in the kharabat of Sham, there comes the sound of Sayyida Ruqayya, who's weeping and crying for the sake of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, so out loud that the Ahlul Bayt cannot lower her tone. The sound goes up. The other women start to cry as well. The sound even goes up higher. That Mal'un is resting in his palace, very close to the shrine of Sayyida Ruqayya. He wakes up. What is going on? They say it's the daughter of Imam al-Hussein. What is she asking for? She's asking for her father, and she doesn't take anything in return except for her father. He thinks for a little bit. He says, "That's easy. Take it to her. Let her have it for some time." They bring this tray covered with a piece of cloth to the wreckage of Sham. Some Maghatil, some report, they say first Sayyida Zainab went to get that tray, but the soldier said, "No, this is specifically for her by the command of our Amir," referring to that Mal'un Yazid. They bring this tray covered with the cloth over, and they hand it to the Sayyida Ruqayya. Now a 3-year-old, a tray covered with a piece of cloth. She's looking at it. What can it be underneath the cloth? With the question in her mind, she reaches forward, gently removes the cloth from the tray. But what does she see? She pulls back in a bigger question mark. What is it that I am looking at? Is this the head of my father, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? She reaches forward gently with both of her tiny hands. She picks up the head of Imam al-Hussein. It's a 3-year-old. She still acknowledges the fact that it is the head of her Baba. She's holding the head on her lap. How much can she hold? She wants to vent. What can she see? But all she says is not about herself, but rather she's talking about the qualities of the head of Imam al-Hussein as she's petting the head and the hair of Imam al-Hussein. Hussein, dropping the tears over the face of Abu Abdullah. And she says, oh Baba Jan, who has done this to your face? Oh Baba Jan, who has done this to your teeth? Oh Baba Jan, what has happened to your neck and your veins of the neck? Oh Abu Abdullah, who has made me orphan? La ilaha illallah. All of a sudden, a sound of a pitch silence takes over the entire wreckage of Sham. They look up, they see Sayyida Ruqayya on one side laying on the ground, the head of Imam al-Hussein on the other side. One shouts out, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. يا الله 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 يا الله. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والنصر واجعلنا من أعوانه وشيعته ومحبيه. اللهم اغفر أرحامنا واشف أمراضنا واجعل عاقبة الأمور خيرا. O Allah, will ask you on the right of the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran, on the right of Sayyid al-Shuhada, on the right of Sayyid al-Ruqayya. O Allah, hasten the appearance of our Imam of time and grant all of us the bounty of being part of his companions. O Allah, provide all of us your forgiveness and have forgiveness upon all of our marhumin and marhumat. O Allah, provide shifa, complete shifa upon all of those who have come down with sicknesses and diseases, especially mu'mineen and mu'minat, and answer their hawaij and du'as, inshaAllah. O Allah, accept this majalis on behalf of your mercy and grace, and extend the sawab and rewards of this majalis to the souls of maraja, azam, ulama, shuhada, and marhumin and marhumat. O Allah, O Allah, O Allah, turn our life to the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, and inshallah our death, the death of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Rahimallah man